The shadows of war, where serial killers operated covertly. Have you ever felt a strange fascination with serial killers? Those individuals who spread terror and leave a horrifying mark on history. If so, you're not alone. It's astonishing how many killers cleverly exploited the chaos, darkness, and disorder of wartime to commit their horrific crimes. However, amidst the grand and tragic events of war, their actions often faded into obscurity, receiving little attention in historical records. For that reason, we believe these stories deserve to be brought to light. Join us as we explore 3 chilling cases involving 2 men and 1 woman who turned war into a veil to conceal their unforgivable brutality. Gordon Frederick Cummins, the London blackout fiend. Gordon Cummins, a young and appealing Royal Air Force (RAF) airman, concealed behind his charming exterior, a self-important demeanor, and a morbid predilection for women in the sex trade. Despite his working-class origins, Cummins diligently cultivated a refined accent after joining the RAF in the mid-1930s, quickly earning him the nickname the Duke. But that captivating facade hid a perverse sexual drive and a dark, murderous instinct, which later earned him the infamous title, the Blackout Ripper. It was February 1942, and London was shrouded in the gloom of the Blitz. Air raid shelters sprouted up across the country, and the dazzling lights of the West End were completely extinguished. This inadvertently created countless dark, secluded corners, perfect for those with sinister intentions to conceal their crimes. On that fateful February 9th, electrician Harold Batchelor discovered the lifeless body of 41-year-old Evelyn Hamilton, lying motionless outside an air raid shelter entrance. Hamilton was new to the city, and her death left no clues for the police. They couldn't have known that the perpetrator was just beginning his massacre. Just 6 days later, 3 more women were dead, and London had to confront a new serial killer, a dark chapter in the city's history. Hamilton's death was merely the prelude to a series of tragedies. Evelyn Oatley, a nightclub hostess, was found in her flat on Wardour Street, with her throat deeply cut and her body savagely mutilated. Margaret Lowe, known as the Lady for her elegant demeanor, was disemboweled in her own home. Finally, Doris Jean was strangled with a stocking, her body discovered by her husband. Only then did the police realize with horror that they were dealing with a serial killer. However, Cummins quickly sought his next target. He charmed Margaret Haywood at a bar, then led her through unlit streets before attacking her in a narrow doorway, while Haywood desperately fought back. Fortunately, 18-year-old John Shan intervened after hearing the commotion. Cummins panicked and fled, leaving behind undeniable evidence, his RAF gas mask. Undeterred and still eager to kill, Cummins continued his attempts to attack another woman, Catherine Mahay, that very night. But Mahay bravely fought back and escaped, screaming for help from her neighbors. Both neighbors watched in stunned confusion as Cummins stumbled around Mahay's apartment, muttering about drinking too much, and then handed her 81 pounds, seemingly to buy her silence. Afterward, he visited another bar, secretly pocketing another man's RAF mask, intending to tell the police it was just an accidental swap. But Cummins' rampage had left a trail of undeniable evidence that the police were meticulously piecing together. His abandonment of the gas mask was the most crucial clue, helping them identify their prime suspect. Further investigation uncovered several victims' belongings in his quarters, and the serial numbers from his pay packet matched the money given to Mahay. Finally, after a week of terror, Cummins was arrested on Valentine's Day, 1942. He was later convicted of all 4 murders and subsequently charged with 2 more. However, Cummins would never learn of these additional accusations because on June 25, 1942, Gordon Frederick Cummins, the Blackout Ripper, paid the ultimate price through execution by hanging Leonarda Cianciulli, the bloodthirsty soapmaker from Correggio. Leonarda Cianciulli was reportedly a disturbed individual from childhood, exhibiting clear signs of severe mental illness from a young age. Married to a government clerk during World War I, the couple later moved to Correggio, a place where Cianciulli's already unstable mind would lead to deadly consequences. You see, years earlier, a fortune teller had given her a chilling prophecy. You will have many children, but they will all die young. Sadly, this prophecy seemed to tragically come true. Out of 17 pregnancies, only 4 of her children survived. This heartbreaking reality fueled an obsession and an intense fear of losing her children, which completely consumed Cianciulli's mind. So, when World War II erupted in 1939 and her son Giuseppe was conscripted, Cianciulli forged an iron determination to ensure his safe return. Working as a fortune teller and matchmaker, she devised a horrifying plan, convinced that the only way to protect her son was through human sacrifice. Her first victim was a woman she had matched in the distant province of Foggia. Faustina Setti, 50, was full of hope when she knocked on Cianciulli's door that day, ready to hand over her life savings to the matchmaker to find a partner. Instead, she met her tragic end under Cianciulli's axe. Offering Setti a glass of drugged wine, Cianciulli patiently waited before taking up her weapon, chopping the poor woman into 9 pieces and draining her blood. But now, Cianciulli had a body to deal with. She stuffed the limbs into pots, along with her special recipe of alum, rosin, and 10 pounds of caustic soda. She continued to boil everything down until, according to her own chilling testimony, the pieces dissolved in a thick, dark mush that I poured into several buckets and emptied into a nearby septic tank. Then, in a horrifying detail straight out of a Sweeney Todd story, Cianciulli untook the congealed blood, mixing it into her crunchy tea cakes to treat her friends and son, Giuseppe. However, Cianciulli was not yet finished. Her next victim, Francesca Soavi, came to Cianciulli believing she would receive an attractive job offer. Then Virginia Cacioppo, a retired soprano, was lured under the promise of employment. Both met the same fate. They were chopped up and turned into soap. Cianciulli didn't get another chance to continue her gruesome acts to ensure her son's safety during the war. Cacioppo's sister-in-law quickly reported her disappearance and her last known location at Cianciulli's home. The police raided her soap-filled house, and Cianciulli confessed immediately, coldly stating that she would do it all again to protect her son. She was subsequently sentenced to 3 years in a criminal asylum and 30 years in prison, where she died of cerebral apoplexy. The Devil Doctor, Marcel Petiot. In Nazi-occupied France in 1944, another horrifying chapter of crime was about to be revealed. Meet Dr. Marcel Petiot. Judged to have mental health issues from a young age, Petiot was expelled multiple times and later charged with damaging public property and mail theft. However, he was deemed mentally unfit to stand trial. Despite his clear psychological problems, Petiot was still called to serve his country when World War I broke out. By 1916, he was on the front lines. Over the next 2 years, Petiot suffered multiple nervous breakdowns and psychiatric unit stays, culminating in him shooting himself in the foot. He then left the army and obtained his medical degree in 1921. When World War II erupted, Petiot joined the French resistance, a perfect cover to conceal his horrific crimes. His first victims were drug addicts, sex workers, and desperate people They would come to Petiot and then vanish without a trace, but under the guise of helping those fleeing brutal Nazi persecution. Petiot found new targets. He offered safe passage to Argentina, transforming himself into a port in the storm, but it was a port that dragged down those who sought refuge there. Petiot operated unchecked until 1944. On March 11th, a terrible stench and smoke began to pour from the windows of his house near Paris's ITW district. French police were called, and upon entering the property, they were plunged into a scene straight out of a horror film. Petiot's residence was no ordinary home. It was a slaughterhouse. Discarded belongings, blood-stained tools, disturbing contraptions, and human body parts marked each room as a torture chamber. In the basement, there were 2 coal stoves, one still containing human remains inside. In the stables, a pit was filled with countless unmatched body parts, hastily submerged in quicklime. The exact number of victims couldn't be determined, but it was strikingly noted that their dismemberment bore a bizarre resemblance to a series of bodies that had been dumped in the Seine River 2 years prior. The police were still reeling outside when Petiot appeared. Identifying himself as his brother, he coldly told them, "The bodies you have seen are those of Germans and traitors to our country. I am the head of a resistance group, and I have 300 files at my home that must be destroyed before the enemy finds them." It was this statement and the general mistrust of the Nazi occupiers that made the French police less than eager to hunt down Petiot. Believing his actions were intertwined with genuine resistance activity, they did everything they could to delay the investigation. They equivocated, hesitated, pursued unimportant leads, and tracked down old property owners, giving Petiot ample time to escape before they truly followed his trail. As a result, Petiot evaded capture, leading the pursuit forces on a prolonged chase across France. But by April 1944, Petiot's collaborators, including his wife and brother, had been arrested. Eventually, Petiot was tracked back to Paris, where he too was apprehended. Throughout the trial, the murderous doctor steadfastly maintained his innocence and attributed his actions to resistance activity, claiming he was only responsible for killing 19 Germans and collaborators. But at least 27 other bodies were found, which, according to Petiot, were the work of other resistance fighters. The jury was unconvinced. Marcel Petiot was sentenced to death for the murder of 26 people, although the true number of victims was undoubtedly much higher. In May 1946, the resistance doctor was executed by guillotine, with a chilling smile on his face the entire time. What are your thoughts on these horrifying stories? Could war truly be the perfect excuse for humanity's darker nature to emerge?